Welcome to On the Bubble Podcast, episode 141. I'm your host, Sabasa J. Wait, and with me is my co-host, Yuki Lee Bender. Today we're going to be doing our episode on Pro Tour Yokohama, and I guess it's like hard to say that this is a spoiler at this point, but congratulations, Yuki, on coming second at this event. I don't know if it's congratulations you came second. Unfortunately, you came second.
Kind of both. Disappointed to have been so close, and almost even the finals game was really, really close. There's arguably a winning line that I could have taken. We can talk about it as we get into things. But yeah, just super close finals game, and it was definitely a little crushing to almost win and not quite get there. But at the same time, it's about as good as you can do on the tournament besides winning it. So very happy about that.
Yeah, you're so right. This is literally one worse than winning the tournament.
Yeah, it's hard to be too upset. It's probably my biggest result overall. So yeah, no, very proud of the weekend, and there was a little bit of disappointment that I had to go through, but overall, just very happy with it.
Fair enough. Well, congratulations on your payday. The second place prizing is pretty big anyways, right? So
yeah, it's $20,000 US. So hard to be too upset.
Yeah, it's a good for losing, yeah, $20,000. Yeah, can't complain about that. Yeah, good trip to Japan, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. More pays for the trip and then some. So yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit. All we're gonna be doing today is gonna be talking about Pro Tour Yokohama. So, do you want to just start off with a Patreon shout out real quick, and then we'll get right into our main topic?
Yeah. So, thank you so much to all of our patrons who give back to the show. We couldn't be doing what we're doing without you, and we really appreciate all your support. If you want to check us out, you can find us on patreon.com/onthebobble. We have some different tiers available, and depending on the ones you get, some of them just give a few dollars back and help support us. And then if you get up to the titanium bobble tier, that will have things like content every week, or every couple weeks when I release it, as well as some coaching tiers if you're interested in that. So yeah, thank you to all of our patrons who get back to the show. I know there was a little bit of a lull around the PT. I released the guide for Brier. Probably just put up a Cilio with my sideboard guide. I don't think I will write notes or a full guide, since there's kind of not really that many events, and Omens is about to come out, and then a bunch of the cards in the deck get banned. So yeah, the Cilio deck that I played at the Pro Tour is unfortunately not the most relevant coming up. If people are really excited about this, let me know. I can definitely do more of a full guide. I just feel he's gone soon. There's no PQs or RTNs. I think there's one calling this weekend at Rotterdam that will probably have already happened by the time you listen to this. But yeah, just kind of not much reason to go into detail on Acilio. But yeah, that's the Patreon. Thank you to everyone. And thank you to all of our listeners who just tune in, even if you're not able to give back. You're the reason that we do this. And it was nice chatting with some people who came up, said they listened to the pod, said that it helped them. All that was really meaningful. I really enjoyed chatting. That's always one of my favorite things, is chatting with people who, listen to the podcast or use some of the content that we put out, and it helps them find success.
So true on that. My last round opponent at the PT also said the same thing to me, was oh, you're from the podcast. And, I always get surprised because I know you're way more famous. So people know you. Most people don't know me for doing this podcast, right? When they see Tsubasa Ueda and then immediately know that I'm from the podcast is kind of crazy. More people would recognize me from my voice rather than just looking at my name.
Yeah, that makes sense, because you don't have so many games on coverage or other social media stuffs, but they might, if they listen all the time, they can recognize you.
So, when they say hi to me, that's I know they definitely listen to the podcast.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense, because that's the main type of exposure that you get. So yeah, that makes sense. And if they listen all the time, they can recognize your voice. I know that's happened to you a few times.
Yeah.
I actually had my round 4 opponent, who was on Prism, tell me that he qualified for the Pro Tour using, I want to say it was a Syndra guide. It was one of the deck guides, and he was super excited to play me, and then asked for a photo afterwards. So I thought that was kind of fun. It was cool to just see somebody who got to their first Pro Tour with some of the content that we do, and said that the podcast helped him out as well. So that was really exciting.
I guess from how well you did to this PT, you also defeated him in the Swiss rounds.
Yeah, I did end up winning that game. We'll kind of go through like a tournament report. There's definitely that is definitely one of the games I want to touch on. It was kind of wild, and kind of goes to show just how strong Acilio can be sometimes. But yeah, we'll get to that soon.
Awesome. Okay, then for the flow of things, I think we're just gonna go in like chronological order for what happened at this PT. Basically speaking, what did you do before the PT started? You know, like, do you wanna like quickly talk about your prep for the PT?
Yeah, so we started online testing. Our testing process was actually like a little behind. A lot of that was on me. I just wasn't as organized this season as I would be in the past. Life has been pretty busy for me. But we did get started about a month out, and we were kind of doing a lot of CC testing early on. And then after the ban list, going back to Silver Age and revisiting there a little bit as well. But yeah, that's sort of like the lead up. And then when we got to Yokohama, some people had played Calling Shanghai, and there was also like a whole bunch of data to go over. And we also did some in-person testing. Most people were there for the Monday. I didn't get in until the Tuesday, actually, because originally I was going to be going to Shanghai, but things were so kind of like hectic at home and had enough going on that I was actually pretty stressed out, and just felt like staying home was a better option, and just being away for a little bit less time and having a little more time to just like rest and take care of myself was a better move. So yeah, I was like kind of going into this PT actually not the most confident. I had been on Acilio for a while and kind of locked it because I wasn't expecting to have as much time to prep. I also feel like the meta is like super wide, and having a lot of experience on a hero and knowing all your matchups felt particularly important for this event. And I kind of felt like even if maybe Marionette is a better pick than Acilio, you could argue perhaps. But even if it's the case, I think it's by a small enough amount that just really knowing your deck is probably worth more than the 2% better deck choice or whatever.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. This format really felt like wide open. Maybe the most wide open format that I've kind of like played in Flesh and Blood since, I don't know, I think this might be like the most wide format ever, right?
I kind of think so. Maybe heavy hitters, but I do feel like Dromai and KO. I guess there was like Kasai. Yeah, maybe heavy hitters is like comparable, but I feel like there's more of these kind of like A tier heroes that you could play, that you could run into, that are just like kind of reasonable, maybe not into everything, but into sections of the meta, depending on what you want to target. And it feels like there's just like more of those decks that you just could kind of expect to see. And yeah, I don't really remember that happening quite to the same degree in other formats.
Yeah, it's also like, from my perspective, we're going to talk about the metagame next, but I feel like there's Arachne, Marionette, and Victor, and Acilio as like maybe the main three heroes that are like the meta. But like all the heroes that are in the 5%, the 4%, the 3% representation for this tournament, I feel like are all reasonable decks to be playing at this Pro Tour. And I kind of was expecting these people to be there too, right? Like, and even like some of the newer decks like Teklo and like Katsu and stuff, I kind of actually expected some people to bring these kinds of decks. And I wasn't even surprised that there's like a little bit of Teklo, a little bit of Katsu, and like decks like that. Like,
Yeah, I completely agree. It felt like there's a lot of decks that could target something, and because of that, there was kind of just more options that were like kind of reasonable. I think I agree with you that like there's kind of the big three, and then after that, it was like, yeah, just kind of a whole bunch of stuff that you could play. And even despite all of that, like, you know, I didn't have the most reps into some of the stuff, even despite locking in like about a month before. There's, you know, like I didn't really practice the Jarl matchup all that much. I played it once or twice, but that was like kind of it, because it just was not as high priority. But yeah, it was like kind of hard to cover all your bases, and it felt like really knowing your deck was super important.
I guess my question for, I guess, do you want to talk about the metagame first?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so as we said, the top three decks representation was Arachne, Marionette, Victor, and Acilio. So it was 16%, 16%, and 14%. 85 copies of Arachne, 83 copies of Victor, and 72 copies of Acilio. Did you have anything to say about any of these top three decks first?
Not really. This was about what I expected. I think I kind of thought Marionette would be the most repped, but I thought it would be by more. It was 85 Marionette and 83 Victor, so they were actually almost tied. I thought Marionette was going to be like, I don't know, like 20 copies more than whatever was second place. But otherwise, this kind of like mostly makes sense to me that these are the top decks, this is the order, and that kind of like 16% is the highest that we have. We've seen some like really, I guess, narrow or like crystallized metas get up to like 25, high 20s in representation, but this felt like one of the tournaments where that wasn't really going to be the case.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then I guess coming down from there, we have Syndra and Gravy Bones both at 7%. There's 39 Syndras and 35 Gravy Bones for this event. I'm actually pretty surprised about these two specifically being the next two most represented deck. I feel like Gravy Bones was actually kind of like a nice niche like meta pick for this exact tournament if you're trying to like target the victors and the Arachne marionettes, but it wasn't really performing that well in most of our other tournaments that we've been looking before PT Yokohama.
Yeah, I agree with you about it not performing. I think this kind of makes me feel good about. I feel like there was just like several weeks where we're like, Gravy's still a good deck. You have a Battlesilio matchup, but Gravy's still good. You're really good into Marionette. You're good into Victor. You're like solid into Victor. I guess not quite as good as before. And you kind of just like have a lot of game into like a lot of the other stuff. As you like go down the list, there's just like a lot of really solid matchups for you. And it's like really Acilio is the main one that you like really don't want to see. And then you have some better ones and some worse ones for sure, but like the rest are pretty playable. So yeah, I kind of feel like we kept being like, Gravy's good, right? Like I think Gravy's like not as bad as people think, and that was just like not true calling after calling. But then at the Pro Tour, yeah, Gravy fifth most repped, and actually, I guess like a little bit of lore, there was supposed to be, or very well could have been, a Gravy in top eight. There was two Gravies playing for a win-in. And they drew because they were on their final turn and they both believed that they had it, and they kind of both had it. Like one of them thought they could whaler lock the other person, and the other person's only out was to have like a D-react in arsenal, and then like I think they had like one card that could like help them clear the whaler out, because like there was also double fearless, so they needed to be able to like have a go again attack into a swabby and still like be able to block out. And yeah, they kind of like both had the thing that they thought they had, and it ended up being a draw, so neither of the Gravies made top eight, but Gravy could have been in top eight. It was like arguably like quote unquote supposed to be if they didn't both draw.
Oh, I actually didn't know that happened. That's kind of crazy. And I guess Gravy mirrors are kind of like prone to going to time. Like there's so many game actions both player has to make, right?
Yeah, and they can be very fatiguey. Like it sounded like that game was going to come down to fatigue. Either the whaler sticks and then just takes the whole hand every turn for the rest of the game, or the whaler gets cleared and then the person with the whaler was going to get fatigued. Was how it was described to me by one of the players.
I see. Yeah, it's tough to do a Gravy mirror in 55 minutes. Mostly in these like high pressure scenarios where you're playing for a top eight of the PT. Like like you want to take your extra 2 seconds, 3 seconds per decision to make sure you're doing the right thing. But that might be the reason why you go to time and maybe not be able to finish the game too. So yeah, I don't even know if I can even blame them for going to time.
Yeah, no, it sounded like a really tough spot. I find like often there's like one person that could have conceded, and it sounded like they kind of needed like one more turn to see, can you clear the whaler or not? And then from there, like one of them would have been happy to concede. But I can see both perspectives of, I think I have your whaler locked, and actually I think I can beat your whaler lock. And yeah, it's hard to know, and you're not really able to talk about it with the concession rules and all that. There will be lots of judges, especially on the win-in. So yeah, kind of a crazy story.
Fair. That actually reminds me of a scenario where I had a Gravy fatigued, but they thought that they had me fatigued because they resolved the whaler.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, in my arsenal is an E-strike, and we went to time, and they're like, I have you dead. And I'm like, no, that's your last. That's your last dude. Like, that's your last ally. I have you fatigued. And I'm just like, I can't show him the E-strike.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a little unfortunate. There definitely are a few situations where like if you were able to talk, you'd be able to resolve it. Yeah. It's
Fair,
tough.
fair. And then I guess we'll come down from it. Actually, before we move on from this, Syndra being the fourth best or fourth most rep deck, I'm actually really surprised about this. Did you expect this, or Syndra being the fourth most represented?
I definitely didn't expect her being fourth most represented. I feel like there was kind of this narrative that the brand with Cinderclaw ban killed Syndra, and I think that we've slowly been seeing that that's not quite true. Some lists are a little more blue. From what I saw, it's like a lot of red line Syndra, and I kind of know that I feel like Syndra's pretty popular in Asia. She also has a pretty solid Acilio matchup if you choose to check for it with like Breaking Point and maybe Art of the Dragon Scale so that you have lots of damage and disruption, which is kind of exactly what Acilio doesn't like to see. So I thought that Syndra was like sort of reasonable, but like I would have thought that Dash.io would be more represented as a deck that is like also good into Acilio and I think a little better positioned into the meta. Like I don't want to play Syndra into Victor, for example, was like kind of the reason I wasn't really considering Syndra despite having played a bunch of Syndra, and it was because of that Victor matchup. So I was definitely surprised to see her at fourth. And when I saw the metagame breakdown, I was like, oh no, I didn't. We had kind of like met and talked about our Acilio decks, everyone on the team who was playing it. And some people were talking about playing Cap of Quick Thinking for Syndra. And I was like, I don't think I need to spend a slot on Syndra. And then I saw Syndra fourth most repped, and I was like, maybe I should have. But I didn't end up playing any Syndras, so never punished, I guess.
Yeah, well, even if we do say that this is a 15 round event, 9 of it being CC, like it's still only 7% of the field, right?
Yeah. It's not super likely, and it's like it's not like you can't win without Kappa Quick Thinking. It just sometimes you get blown out turn 0 and start the game at like 20, and it's tough. And Kappa Quick Thinking kind of prevents that. But yeah. Anyways, yeah, Syndra was like a big surprise to me. I don't think Syndra did quite as well as Gravy, but I think there was definitely Syndras in day 2.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the Fab Blazing data. Syndra had a 49% match win percentage, so reasonable, like very normal for a PT.
Yeah, and that was kind of my evaluation of the deck, that she was just totally fine. Like, yeah, just totally fine. Just like you could bring her, she was okay. She's not the best deck. It's fine.
Yeah, from the Fab Blazing website though, it does look like there's a lot of like red and a lot of green, so a lot of polarized matchups more than like a flat matchup spread.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Then coming down from the list, we have the Dash.io deck that you mentioned at 5%, Kasai at 5%, Prism at 4%, Vincent at 4%. So they're respectively like 28, 25, 21, and 20, so all in the 20 range. Honestly, these were the 4 decks that I kind of thought that was going to be a little bit more popular than Syndra, but Syndra ended up being just more popular than these 4.
Yeah, I mostly agree. Except for the Kasai pick. The Kasai pick really confused me. I heard that a few people were on Kasai, and I didn't really understand, because from my understanding, the Acilio matchup's pretty bad, and your Marionette matchup's not great. And I guess I don't know how the Victor matchup goes, but I don't think it's that good that you like want to play Kasai. Like I was just sort of like, I don't know. Like if I think about Kasai and I look into this field, I'm like, what is it that I would want to see?
You want to see Gravy.
Sure.
Yeah. And you're like really, really good into like the random, like the 1% field decks, right? And the 2% field decks.
Sure. You have some good matchups in the like lower things and into Gravy. Yeah, Kasai was like a little bit of I thought Kasai was like not the best pick. So I was like, we're down to 7th most reps, so only 5% of the field. So maybe it's not that crazy. But I was just like, yeah, I didn't think that Kasai would be a deck that people would want to bring. But yeah, she was up there. And Vincent fell off quite a bit. But I think it makes sense. It seemed like Vincent was quite good, and then as the meta shifted really fatigue and everyone was packing Ripple Aways, I think that it got much harder to do well with Vincent.
Yeah. I think once people bring in or have the 3 Ripple Aways and they're just like their decks, Vincent's power turns can go down significantly. So yeah, I think the lower popularity of Vincent kind of makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought that Dio was a good pick for the tournament, but it being lower on the representation sort of makes sense to me. There's a lot of fatigue decks. The fatigue matchups are quite exhausting. Dio is actually a consideration for me because of the positive Basilio matchup, and I don't mind the Marionette matchup either. But yeah, I didn't want to play into all the fatigue decks. But I believe that Sam Sutherland was like pretty close to making it. I think he won like or he lost like multiple win-ins and kind of a little bit of heartbreaking fashion, from what I understand. Certainly, like when he paired into the Teklo, and the Teklo started like stealing his items with Evo Magneto, and he had the like there's like an Evo upgrade card that removes Steam counters from multiple cards. It was just like, holy, it's so hateful.
It's like Teklo Boston was like, I was prepared for you, specifically you.
Yeah, exactly. I think that game's on stream late into day 2. So yeah, I think the Dio was a good pick, but maybe only a handful of pilots that would be strong enough to navigate it into the field.
Yeah, that would make sense. Dash IO is a very, very punishing deck if you make like one or two mistakes. Some of those games are like decided by like if you boosted one too many times or not boost one time. So yeah, it's a very punishing deck to play. And then we're coming down. These are going to be the decks in the teens. We have Arachne Huntsman at 18. There's 15 Dorenthia, 14 Ira, 14 Jarls. And I guess we'll talk about Valda and Faya both at 11 as well. So like not the mediocre, but like the middling Guardians, I guess is the better way of saying it. Yarrow and Volda, they both did pretty well in this event actually, but there weren't that many of them that bought it. And then we have Ira for the Ira lovers still, and Huntsman kind of fell off. I think I'm kind of surprised that there's this many Huntsmen. I thought that people would be off of Huntsman at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it dropped quite a bit from being like, I think early on in the format, people were like, oh, like Huntsman's a real deck. It top eighted, I think, like 2 callings back to back, and made like a calling finals. But down to 3% is a pretty steep fall off. So I think I'm not too surprised seeing Huntsman somewhere around here. I think it is the type of deck that really speaks to certain people. And there's some real diehard Arachne Huntsman fans out there. But yeah, definitely a big fall off. And I think in one of our episodes, I think one of the ones we recorded most recently, I'm not exactly sure where that lands release schedule wise, because we had some pre-recorded ones for a bit there. But I think we touched on this, that we've kind of felt like Huntsman was maybe not as strong a pick as they seemed early on in the format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Once people figured out what to do, it's not a good deck again.
And you were on Huntsman for this event, right?
Yeah, I ended up bringing Huntsman for this event. I guess quick update on how I did. 9 rounds of CC I went. On Huntsman, I went 4 and 5. So not the best. I've beat 1 Victor, lost to 2 Victors, beat 1 Vincent, lost to a Vincent, beat 1 Acilio, lost to 1 Acilio. So I just was like, and a lot of these games are like pretty close, except for the Acilio game I lost. And just like, I guess it could have gone either way if I like didn't draw a hand that was like a little bit better than 1-1 or something like that. Like, but yeah, it was pretty reasonable. I ended up the tournament with a 8-7 record, so technically over 50% because of my Sage performance, but it wasn't like I lost every single matchup to a specific deck except for the Prism, and which I played one of. So it was like fine. I knew the Victor matchup was going to be miserable, but I was able to beat one of them. So yeah, like it was okay.
Sounds like kind of what we were saying, that the deck is still a deck. It's not embarrassing to play, but there's better options out there.
No, some of my turns were pretty embarrassing, but yeah.
I mean, it's a strange deck because it's so fatiguey. Like a lot of your like traditional value lens doesn't necessarily completely apply, but yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah. There was one turn where I'm playing against this Victor. I think I'm like 15 or 16 points ahead. And then one of the turns I have like full tempo. Look up my hand. I'm just like, only way I can convert this hand is pitch 2 cards, dagger, dagger, IP2, draw 2, pass. Whew, what a turn.
Yep. Yep. That is assassin sometimes.
Yeah, and then I ended up losing to like a 15 overpowered Golden Sun like 2 turns later. So, yeah, that was it's definitely a game to lose.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Anything else you want to touch on? There's a lot of decks at the 1%, 2% range. Is there any deck you want to talk about here?
Not really. Yeah, not especially. I guess like Tekla Vossen, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there soon enough. And then that aside, we also have the Sage metagame. This is going to be kind of interesting to talk about as well. I guess we just start from the top here as well. 131 IRAs at 28%. Unlike in CC, this is definitely the most represented deck, not even close. The next represented deck was KO at 14% at 66 copies. So there was double the amount of IRAs as KOs.
Yeah. So a lot of IRA, KO really falling off. And then we saw the Guardians kind of splitting 12% on Oldhim, 11% on Valda at 55 and 50 copies. And those 4 decks kind of made up a huge amount of the meta, right? Like half, a bit over half. Yeah, a little bit over half of the meta, those 4 decks.
It's almost 60% actually. So it's almost 2/3.
Yeah. So yeah, just like a huge chunk in those 4 heroes. I think this kind of made sense for people who were really closely following the meta. KO was definitely the talk of the town. We talked about KO on the podcast, but we saw KO's numbers gradually fall off, and especially in Calling Shanghai, we did see a KO in top 8. I think it was Evan Herndon, I believe. But yeah, KO overall did not really perform that weekend, and in particular, Valda kind of came as a breakout deck of the weekend that made it all the way to finals. And so, yeah, as the meta shifted, I'm not too surprised to see KO have dropped off and down into second place and Ira be first place. I don't think I expected quite this much Ira, though. I expected her to be first, but not by like double the next deck's representation.
I think what ended up happening was the sentiment that I got from the group of people that I was testing with was they were all kind of on KO to begin with, and then they started playing into the Valdas and the Oldhams that were like designed to beat the KOs, and they were having such a rough time playing KO into those decks that they switched off to Ira.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And I kind of thought I was going to be on KO, and I think the Valda matchup was the one that really pushed me off of it. I felt like Oldhim, if you had tech, was okay. Had like lots of go again with like Zealous Belting, Buck Wilds, and some pummels, and or one pummel, I guess, and that really helped into Oldhim. You could kind of counter fatigue, and it did improve your Valda matchup, but it was still quite tough. So that's kind of why straight away from KO. But the Ira pick makes sense. She was sort of like one of the flatter matchup spreads in the format. I just kind of felt like, I guess the reason I didn't want to play Ira was I felt like she's pretty die roll dependent. Like she's really good going second and a lot worse going first, and especially like in a lot of the aggro matchups. So it kind of felt like you get less polarization, but then you have to roll the die, and then there's often like a 20-30% swing, which is tough. And I kind of also felt like while she's pretty flat, I don't know what your like super good matchup is either.
I don't know if she had a super good matchup. I think
she's kind of just okay into a lot of stuff is how I felt about her.
Yeah, she's like 50% into like the whole field is kind of like my impression of Ira.
Yeah. So definitely for people wanting to kind of like have a stable deck, it's appealing, but it also felt like she maybe didn't have clear strengths and was a little die roll dependent for my tastes.
So I guess let's just talk about the next 2 decks, which will be Kano at 32 copies and Brier at 27 copies. Kano being the wizard and making people respect the wizard is reasonable. The deck that I want to talk about here is Brier. And you brought Brier. You made 6-0 on this event at Brier. Why did you choose Brier of all decks to bring for this event?
So Brier wasn't on my radar at all until Calling Shanghai, where Chris Iali had a hell of a run, wound up winning the whole tournament on Brier and kind of showing that deck off. I watched that because it was kind of right before I was leaving to the Pro Tour, and that was the only tournament that we had in Sage post BNR that was streamed and with like decent sample size. So I was really curious to see how it went, and I was pretty impressed with Chris's deck because of the inclusion of Sigil of Voltaris and Brier. I had been interested in Sigil of Voltaris with Flash of Brilliance in Aurora as like a way to get reach, where you can buy it back with Beckoning Haunt to ping them, and then it comes down, and then it's in play. And if you pick it up with Flash of Brilliance, you get another ping. Then you can replay it for another ping. So you kind of just got this like almost wizard-like finish on the opponent's turn, or could just kind of like block and get to your turn and deal another arcane. So it just gave you like a very, very strong end game. But Aurora didn't really end up being that strong. But then when I saw Chris put it in Brier Shell, I was like, this makes a ton of sense. Brier, I think, is just a stronger hero in Sage right now. And yeah, it seemed really, really impressive. So I jammed some games on it. And the thing I liked about it was that it's like one of these more assertive decks, which I usually tend to prefer. And it felt like it had an edge into basically all of the other aggro decks. You kind of get to block really well because you have embodiments. You also have Sigil of Sufferings, which are like for the yellow, even the yellow Sigil of Sufferings are 4-point cards if you get full value, and the reds are 5. So it felt like Brier could kind of win regardless of the dice roll. Not to say it doesn't matter, but it mattered less, and could even win when you're behind, which I think is pretty rare for the aggressive decks in this format. When you fall behind, you're kind of just behind, whereas I kind of was able to like grind back some pretty big life deficits as Brier just by, you block out, you send 3 and 1 arcane, they can't really stop it, you get the embodiment, you get a bit of chip damage, you keep blocking, you ping them with Sigil of Suffering, you eventually get to Sigil of Artaris, you kill them on their turn. Like you can win from some pretty ridiculous positions with Brier, and that was really appealing to me. The big hang up was the Oldham matchup. That matchup is tough. You can win. I think it's quite bad. But the Valda matchup felt okay. It's like hard to play, but pretty close. And you were also pretty good into the counter decks, which were kind of like in the same bracket as Brier, which was Kano and Florian. I kind of viewed those as like the Guardian counters, because it kind of felt like there was like KO, there was the Guardians that were trying to beat KO, and then there was the Kanos and Florians trying to beat the Guardians. And then I guess there's just Ira, who's like just doing Ira stuff. But it felt like Brier was pretty good into basically everything but Oldham in that pie, and that was pretty appealing to me.
That's fair. It's fair. Yeah, I was gonna ask about the Oldham matchup because on Fab Blazing, it says 23% win rate into Oldham at this Pro Tour, which is quite abysmal. Did you beat any Oldhams, or did you dodge them?
I actually did beat an Oldham. I beat one of my teammates, Brian Lorenz, in a nail biter of a game. And yeah, that's probably about the right win rate. I agree that I think that's probably very close to the correct win rate. It will depend a bit on the Oldham list. If they didn't have arcane polarities, the matchup actually gets a lot more playable. And depending on how they approach it, it can be easier or harder. I think if they try to like super hard fatigue you, you actually have an easier time. And if they are more willing to like the games where they just like thunder quick you for 10 going second and then block you, and you kind of just like can't take setup turns because you're too low, are just really, really doomed. So I think it depends a lot on their approach to the matchup. But overall, I think if they're playing it well, it is a tough matchup, but you can get there. I kind of shifted away from Chris's Evergreen package into Oldham. It just felt like even with the Evergreens, I was getting fatigued, and you have this 3 cost in a deck that has 2 blues, and it just felt like every time I drew it, I was just falling behind. So instead, I went for like a second Harness Lightning, a Malefic Incantation, and yeah, just like a little bit more ways to do kind of like these setup turns. And yeah, the second Harness Lightning actually got me the lethal against Oldham. Arguably, he could have AB'd and would have lived at 1, but I think I also had like 4 and 1 into 2, 4, 4 on the following turn, which probably gets there. So yeah, I think that Brier does have game into the Guardians. Valda is really technical but close, and Oldham is unfavored but winnable even into good pilots. It's just depends a lot how the early game goes, I think.
Okay, that's pretty fair. And I guess another question would be like, did your whole team play Brier, or was it just you?
It was just me and Mercy Bickle, who came in finals at, I want to say, Worlds Osaka with Aurora. She was also on Brier. And then most of my team was on Oldham. I think 3 people wound up on Florian. and we had one person on KO, which was funny because I think most of us were on KO originally, and I actually think our KO deck was really good. I was very close to registering KO, but yeah, a lot of us pivoted towards one of the other options instead, and I think I was kind of between Brier, Florian, or KO.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's actually really funny. I ended up on KO at this event. I was one of the people that was playing Oldham for like the longest time preparing for this event and just like making people miserable trying like KO into me. And then it was like the weekend before the PT, I went to like a random locals in Japan. And then I just like played a bunch of Florians and a Dromai. No, it wasn't a Dromai. It was Enigma. I just got smashed. Like it wasn't close. I just went like 0-5 at this like armory, and I'm just like, why am I playing Oldham that just like has these like close to 0% matchups? The Oldham win percentage into Florian at this PT was 7.7%. There was 13 matches. It went 1-12.
Yeah,
That's abysmally bad.
yeah. Also 1-11 into Kano.
Yeah, that's abysmally bad. And I was just like, I just thought to myself, I'm like, do I really just want to play matchup lottery on Oldham this weekend? And last minute, like 1 or 2 days before the PT, I was just like, no, I'm just gonna play KO and I'm gonna like run at people instead. And honestly, it was good. I went 4-2. I lost to a mirror because they played humble and 2 pummels. And if they're that teched into the KO mirror, I have to give it to them. So I think the KO deck was still pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. I think that people needed to update their lists a little bit. If you play too much of the draw discard into the Guardians, you kind of just fatigue. But if you prioritize the like stable go agains with like Buckwild and maybe Zealous Belting, you can actually just keep converting and counter fatigue them a lot of the time. Valda is definitely harder because she gets free seismic surges from you a bunch and you can't get rid of all the draw discards. But yeah, I think like the data would indicate that KO is not good, and there's kind of been this big fall off. And I think a lot of people's perception is that KO is not good. And I think to some degree, people just need to work on their lists and game plans a little bit. And he's still really powerful. People were talking like this deck was broken for a reason, and yes, there are some decks that can counter him or keep up with him, but he's still really good. He's still really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the good players were off of KO this time.
Yeah, I think that was the case. I think most people had pivoted to something else. And I agree with you. That was sort of the thing that turned me off of Oldham was the polarization in his matchup spread. I actually really dislike Oldham as a deck in this format. I feel like he's just like a deck that has like 80s and 90s and then zeros. And I don't know. I just don't think that's great. It's just like kind of a bad experience. So yeah, I would like to see some of these block cards maybe leave. I think these super block Oldham decks that do not want to play the game and just like completely dunk on certain decks and have zero like just like yeah, all those I talk to is like, what's your plan into Florian and Kano? And they're just like, just don't play them. I'm just gonna like give up if I play them. It's like awesome, like great.
Yeah, that's not a plan I want to be at either. I had Summers Falls in my deck box, just to make like if I wanted to make sure I can beat like a Florian or something, but like that's still not enough. But it makes it a little bit closer when you can Summers Fall the rune chance and stuff. Essentially, you're just gaining some life, even if they're playing Reaping Blade, if they're trying to prevent you from gaining life. So like there are some options we can play. It just makes every other matchup kind of awful if you play that in your deck.
Yeah, and it's like those matchups are still so bad that it's like you're better off just focusing on securing your good matchups. But I think it's sort of, to me, this is not an ideal place for a deck to sit in a format. Just in general, like having almost unlosable matchups and almost unwinnable matchups just doesn't make for interesting games. So yeah, I think in my opinion, something should happen to Oldham. Whether that's like probably just like card bans. Honestly, I think that there's all the Guardian yellow 4 blocks probably don't need to be in the format. Maybe you can leave some of them, but they don't need like what do they have like 16 of them? Oh no.
There's 6 copies. There's 6 copies of the Clash of X cycles. There's one for each head, chest, leg, arm, and there's shield. So there's 3, 4, 5 of them there.
Yeah, so they have like 10 4 blocks.
That they can play for whatever reason. And honestly though, I kind of like those cards because it makes the Oldham Mir and the Volda matchup kind of like really funny. And yeah, it's I kind of like the fact that you can like do some crazy stuff with them. Like you can play like a slightly worse armor and take advantage in the mirror of like like kind of free rolling your opponent. So I kind of like those in like specifically the Guardian mirrors, but
Mhm.
oh man, in the aggro matchups, they're so obnoxious. Mostly because you can't lose the clash with them. I think that was a mistake on that card.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Like because you're playing so many of these block cards, imagine you play like these block cards against like the aggro decks and you have to clash against them. You lose a life. Like that's so bad.
Yeah, and you're playing like all these block cards. You actually have a lot of whiffs. Yeah, that would make a big difference. I agree. It's just sort of like they're free to include. They're also yellows. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess touch very briefly on Valda, then we can move on. Valda kind of came as like a breakout deck at Calling Shanghai. We saw a lot of the Super Armory team on Valda. It looked really impressive as a KO counter and just like a strong deck in general. You can high roll turn 0 super hard and kind of just like get like 10 value turn 0 and then just do a giant dominate and kind of win the game. But it did feel like after people saw Valda, she kind of fell off a little bit. The Oldham decks were like really teched with like Staunch and sometimes Steadfast or like Oasis Respite for prevention effects. Iras were playing Reinforced Alliance, which made that matchup no longer good. And then like Florian is kind of close. You can dominate Smack sometimes, but it's not the most reliable. And then the Wizards are tough too, like Kano. So yeah, Valda was sort of a deck that seemed really impressive, came as a breakout deck. And in my testing, I wasn't super high on Valda, largely because the Oldham matchup was so bad and it felt like Oldham was kind of the better Guardian. And then it feels like it kind of shook out that way at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like most of Volda's losses were to the Oldham. And then that's why Oldham had like the higher win percentage, where Volda did have a slightly lower win percentage looking at Fat Blazing data.
Yeah. And then you're like similarly good into KO and Oldham's a little better into Ira. So yeah, I felt like even though Oldham has some more pronounced weaknesses, Oldham just sort of had the better matchup spread.
Okay, then we'll just talk about your kind of like flow into this tournament up to your top 8. Was there any notable matchups you want to talk about during your Swiss rounds? Maybe let's start with your CC rounds. Your first 5 rounds of CC, I guess.
Yeah, so my first 5 rounds of CC, I went 4-1. I started with 4 wins, and I'd say that overall my deck was running really hot. Turn 0, I took 6. I played Sigil of Conductivity and Sigil of Brilliance on my opponent's turn. They're playing Victor, and I IP'd a Gone in a Flash, and then I just drew 3 instants and a spell because I had the Sigil of Brilliance and just comboed for like 25-ish damage and had the Sigil and had like another Sigil of Brilliance in the next turn and it did like 25 damage again and then he's at like 10 and the game's just basically over. So yeah, I ran pretty hot. I played a Fatigue Pleiades, also ran quite hot. Played against Tao Tao Chu, who's a friend of mine, very good Huntsman player, and just once again kind of ran him over before he could get amulets going. Played against a Prism. This is one that I do want to touch on. This game was crazy. I had the most I had like the perfect combo turn with Gone in a Flash in Arsenal. I believe I had like Blast to Oblivion, Sigil of Brilliance, Somersault, and a spell. So it's like going to be the most disgusting, or maybe I have 2 instances. It's going to be like the most disgusting combo turn. And he ends up, I take a bunch of damage. He ends up dissolve realitying me. And I'm like, that's really bad. I lose the Gone in a Flash.
Sorry, before you continue, Dissolve Reality is the illusionist card that bottom decks both players' arsenal and draw card.
Ponder.
Oh, you get a Ponder token.
Yeah, you get a Ponder. But I believe I get to Balance of Justice on this turn because he used his Soraya, and I was like, kind of like, that's kind of crazy giving me Balance of Justice because he knows I have Gone in a Flash in Arsenal, and then he Dissolve Realities. I'm like, that makes a lot more sense. I see why he did this. And I proceed to combo with only Blast to start because I'm just going to draw so many cards off of the the Sigil of Brilliance, and I have some pretty good outs, and I think I have to go for it. And I end up drawing a God in a Flash, I think, off like the second Sigil of Brilliance. And I still do like 32 damage and gain 3 life and have a Sigil of Brilliance in play at the end of it. And I did the math after, and I think his Dissolve Reality was worth like 35 points on the turn.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, so I had like probably the most disgusting Acilio combo of like, maybe not all time, but like one of the strongest ones you can have. And then it got like chopped in half, and I still just ran him over, which was just kind of crazy. Like, it was just like a really wild game. And he was just like, yeah, I thought when I dissolved your God in a Flash, I would be okay. And I was like, that's pretty reasonable. I don't blame you. Yeah, so I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because Prism starts with 32 life, right? So that you presented their whole life total.
Yeah, I presented their whole life total, and they did have like a bunch of war. They didn't die, but I was able to close the game from there. Yeah, and then I lost my last round of Swiss into a Huntsman. I actually think I was in a really good position, but I made a pretty critical mistake. I had a pretty good turn going with Gone in a Flash. I think I drew the Gone in a Flash late, is what it was. And so I hadn't popped Boots yet. And then I saw an opportunity to pop Boots, go for a line where I could etchings for 7. I was like able to double spell because I had hit with Sigil of Aether and had popped the gloves. So I had like amp 4 ready to go. And then I could do like a second spell later on and get more Volzar value. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to amp the etchings, get another instant, go like Gone, instant, Gone, shock or something, and then giant Volzar. And I basically like super winning from there. I kind of overlooked the fact that he could just AB3 and pop one of his Spell Void, because like usually that comes up at the end of the game, but he made a very heads up play of doing it on my combo turn and just like, yeah, I'll play the game with AB2, even with like half your deck left. And it made my combo turn not very good. Like I think I got like 4 extra value out of my Boots, compared to if I just hadn't used them, which is not where you want to be. And I got fatigued from there, partially because things didn't line up for me, partially because he had disruption line up on his end. It was still like a close game. But I think in retrospect, had I just taken the slightly smaller line where I didn't greed and then got a Sigil, I think I would have had like double Sigil Brilliance at that point, like 1 from the turn and 1 from the etchings if I just Volzar'd it. And I could have arsenaled the Gone on a Flash and had like a 7-card hand and still have my Boots, which is probably much better. But yeah, it happens. So I was definitely a little frustrated with that loss, but I was able to kind of shake it off, which was nice because I think sometimes in the past I've gotten frustrated if I make a stupid mistake like that. And it was frustrating, but I was able to kind of just like recenter, go into stage, and win 3 games, 2 against Ira, and then 1 into my teammate on Oldham, which was a really tight one. So yeah, I was happy with my ability to like bounce back after that loss.
Okay, that makes sense. So then the next 6 rounds, kind of like bridging day 1 and day 2, was Sage. Was there any games you want to like touch on for those 6 rounds? Because you just went win, 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 win. Was any of these on coverage?
Yeah, some of the later rounds. So my day 1 Sage rounds were not. I had like Ira, Oldham, Ira. The Oldham game was quite close. The second Ira game was also close. There was like a bit of a complicated judge call with some like language barrier going on in that, around like I had missed an embodiment trigger. I think my opponent had noticed that I missed it and then made some plays as if I had missed it. And then I realized, and then the fix is that the embodiment goes on the stack. And I felt kind of bad about it because my opponent felt like they had made bad decisions because they thought I didn't have an embodiment. But also that is the policy. So I don't know. It's a tough spot. I didn't really know what to do. I called a judge and that's how it went. I'm not sure what would have happened if that didn't. If they were, he wanted to be able to rewind the play. The judges wouldn't let him rewind the play. I don't know what would have happened if he was able to rewind the play, but I definitely felt bad because he was like super frustrated, and I get where he's coming from. So, and it wasn't my intention to try and like, miss my embodiment and get him on it, but it was a bit of a tough spot, but it was overall a really close game. And I was able to come back from like, I think I was at 4 and he was at 12, and I was sending like 5 damage back and putting a Sigil of Voltaris in my arsenal, and I had some equipment and he was out of equipment, so it's like a little closer than that, but it was very much like a come from behind, block, play a 0 for 4, ping you, draw into my Sigil of Sufferings, and like eventually get there. But yeah, it was a very close game. I wish we could have kind of played it without all the judge stuff going on, but yeah, it was a close one.
Yeah, I think basically the change came from when Brier was able to like purposely miss the embodiment of Earth to not have an aura in play for some interactions. Basically, now you can't miss it, and if you did miss it and you find out, you just get it, and that's just like how it's ruled now. So like people can't like purposely miss it when they don't want it, and then purposely get like when you you basically can't choose when to get it essentially now.
Yeah,
Whereas the old rules kind of like allowed the Briar player to, unintentionally in quotations miss it. It is cheating, but like how do you punish that? And the fix that the judges decided was we can't really fix that loophole, so then we're just gonna we've made the decision that they're always going to have it.
Yeah, and it kind of makes it so that like mandatory triggers, you just kind of want to point them out even as the opponent, because if you get to a wrong game state, you might just have to rewind, and then maybe you made decisions based on a wrong game state, and then they usually get the trigger anyways, and that can just be like disastrous for you if you've been making decisions as if they missed the trigger and they haven't actually missed it because they end up getting it in the end. So I think it incentivizes kind of like both players to just maintain the game state, which overall I think I like, but I get can be really frustrating and crushing, especially at like the Pro Tour. So yeah, feel for my opponent. But that is how the policy does work.
Okay. Do you want to move on to your last 5 rounds of Swiss?
Well, let's cover day 2 stage. So day 2 stage, I'm 7-1 going into day 2. I look at my bracket. It's actually really, really good for me. I think there's a Terra that I don't want to see, and the rest of the matchups are like equal to good. So I'm pretty happy about that. There's not many Oldhams. I think I mentioned that Oldham's a bad matchup. I was expecting some Oldham, but maybe a little less than showed up. So I was a little bit worried about the Oldham matchup. And in the X2 bracket, I think a quarter of the decks in the X2 bracket, when I looked at the end of day 1, were Oldhams. So I was like, okay, I cannot lose the first 2 rounds of Swiss because then I'll be in the Oldham bracket and that could just like potentially end my run. So I really, really want to win the first 2 rounds of Swiss. My first game's into Cody Williams. He's on Valda, which is a tough matchup. That game's on coverage. It comes down to like the very last point and the very last card, and I barely get there. It's really close. There was like an interesting decision early in the game where I had the option to block with a Harness Lightning or a Sprout Strength, and I opt to block with the Harness Lightning so that I can put the Sprout Strength on an attack action and prioritize getting the embodiment. But it's actually a really close decision because I could also potentially play the Harness Lightning, which prioritizes chip damage and makes the fatigue endgame less of a concern. And this game almost goes to fatigue. So there was a very close decision there. I still don't know what's right because arguably if I don't have the embodiment, maybe he can take a pivot and try to play more proactively. And I don't know how exactly it changes the game, but it was an interesting decision point that I thought kind of definitely set a tone for the game. And hard to say if it was correct or not, but yeah, I think that was a really good game. It was worth watching. And I think it was maybe one of my favorite games of the tournament, just in terms of how close it was. I think my Sage games were some of my closest games. The 2 Guardian games, as Brier and Sage, were just like really interesting.
Okay. That's kind of sick to double check. Maybe, if you guys haven't watched the stream yet, probably a good game to take a look at it, because like if you're playing aggro, one of your main like weaknesses is these fatigue decks, and how you overcome it is kind of like very important to figuring out how to play the aggro decks in the Sage format right now.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. My round 11 is also on coverage against Colin Erickson on solitary confinement, which is kind of crazy. I didn't really think this was a deck in the format, but Colin did quite well on it. And that game's also on coverage. There's not too much else to talk about this game. I don't think it was a solid game, but it wasn't like the most of it wasn't like super close or anything. So yeah, not too much else to say, just it was on coverage.
Awesome. So what's your record at this point?
Yeah, so I'm X and 1 or 10 and 1 at this point, which is actually not quite locked yet. I need 2 more wins, and I have what, 5 rounds to do it? 4 rounds. 4 rounds.
4 rounds. Yeah.
So good spot, but and I think I'm second seed at this point as well. So my breakers are going to be really good, but I need to scrap together the wins. I play round 12 against Damian Riggins. He's on Fatigue Victor. I know he's on Fatigue Victor partially because he's kind of made a reputation for himself over the last few months playing these Fatigue Guardians and doing really well with them. And partially because my teammates also played against him and told me that he's on Fatigue Victor.
The problem with playing some of these Fatigue decks in these like super long tournaments are that, if you're doing well, people know what you're on.
Yeah. So I'm able to adjust my sideboard a little bit for him, play a couple extra, like I think 1 extra Burn Bear, and board out the Sigil of Solaces because I know he's on Skullcap, and his plan is to not attack me so that his Skullcap is online and he can just super hard fatigue me, and he never turns on Flash of Brilliance as a result. So yeah, I kind of know this is his plan going in. I'm able to board out Sigil of Solace in place of Cloud Cover, which is just a little better. It's also an instant. It amps 1. It's lightning, and it doesn't have the downside of gaining me life and turning on his Skullcap at a higher life threshold.
Yeah, the downside of gaining life. Yeah.
Yeah, in that exact matchup, Sigil of Solace is normally like one of the better instants in Acilio because it works so well with Gone in a Flash. But yeah, into the Fatigue Victor Skullcap matchup, not quite the case. This game was really good. It's not on coverage, sadly, but basically I find a really early combo before he gets his amulets, chip him down to about 17, kind of keep hitting him, getting him a bit lower. He gains some life, get him a bit lower. He gains some life. I'm running really low on deck. I think I get him to about like 10 or so, and I'm kind of down to my last hand or two. And I'm able to sort of like filter, play some small hands, IP a couple cards because I know what my stack is. And at this point, he does have an amulet, and I believe I set up a turn that's something like Blast to Oblivion, play an instant, bounce a Sigil, Gone, bounce the Gone, current funnel, play a Gone. At this point, he amulets me, and I'm able to play, I think, like the Sigil that was in my hand for an amp, and also the shock that's in my hand, and kind of dodge the amulet and do a bunch of arcane, and this is just enough to kill him. I also have a shock on my following turn, so I have like a little bit of extra reach if this doesn't kill him. I think it's like 3 more damage, but it is kind of down to like the very last cards in deck, as I think these fatigue matchups often go for Acilio. And yeah, I felt good about being able to execute that because I didn't spend the most time on the fatigue guardian matchups. I wasn't sure how strong those decks were overall, but they definitely did quite well. There was quite a few people on Fatigue Victor, and yeah, it's a tough one. So if you're planning to play Acilio somewhere, I would get some reps in that matchup. So it's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Victor, or just like the Guardians that are just trying to fatigue you, were pretty powerful in this format. And
Yep.
I feel like Teklovossen was kind of in the same vein, right? Like they're just trying to fatigue you, and it was just good enough, and it did do the job essentially.
Yeah, if you had enough like life gain D-reacts, arcane barrier, oasis respite, like you just make it a huge pain, and you can beat it. I think that it's actually like still a decent matchup for Acilio, but you get to, I think against a lot of people, you probably just crush them. And I think even into really strong Acilios, you still get a really close game. So yeah, it was an interesting call, and I think it was a pretty reasonable take for the tournament, actually.
Okay, that makes sense. Then I kind of noticed you're round 13. You're playing against the same. Is it the same deck that you played against?
Different one. This is the Victor that actually made top 8. Nicholas Jamoul from Canada as well. I believe Quebec, and he beats me. This game just doesn't go my way. Like I kind of draw some nothing hands. He finds an early amulet. The hands that do something, he disrupts me, and I just kind of like never get going. I don't know. One of the Acilio games. I think normal Victor is actually a pretty good matchup for me, but yeah, things line up pretty well for him with disruption and amulets, and things don't really line up for me. So the game is not particularly close, and I'm kind of at this point of I need one more win. I have 2 more rounds to do it, which is a good spot to be, but it's it's not free. Like it's still stressful. And I get paired into Michael Hamilton, who is somebody that I've been testing with and is a good friend of mine. And yeah, I see his name and it's not the person I want to see, partially because Michael Hamilton's obviously like one of the best players in the world, partially also because it's my friend. I guess there's like a bit of the silver lining that one of us is locked for top 8 for sure after that game. And yeah, so we play in a mirror, which we've played a few times already, just in testing. And I am able to get there in that game. It's fairly close. I actually kind of don't remember the specifics of this game. I might be getting it mixed up with other games, so I'm not going to comment too much on it, but it's quite close. I do end up getting there, and I feel super relieved. I feel a little bad for Michael, but Michael does end up winning his last round for his win-in, which was really exciting. I was really happy to see him also make top 8, and that we kind of both got into top 8 and got to talk through matchups and help each other out there. So yeah, just shout out to Michael. Really appreciated testing with him, and yeah, it was really cool to play him for the win-in and then see him still make it.
So at this point, after round 14, you're locked for top 8, and you were like guaranteed even if you lost, right?
Yeah, because I'm XN2. I'm one of the best XN2s. I think at this point, Nicholas Jamul is also XN2, and Evan is XN2, and I'm XN2. And I can't play Nicholas, so I'm going to pair into Evan. We're going to play. The winner of us is probably first seed, and then I'm either second or third. I don't know if I have better breakers than Nicholas or not. I end up losing to Evan. Nicholas ends up losing, so so Evan's first seed. I'm second seed. Nicholas is third, and then I think like Hamilton's fourth. And it's yeah. So I kind of knew I was going to be either one or two of the X2s, depending on how Nicholas's game goes. And if I lost, I'd probably be like the best X3 or the second best X3.
Okay. So you were like basically guaranteed locked.
Yeah. Evan and I both knew going into that game that we were locked. Still worth playing for seeding. But yeah, we played a Cilio mirror. I have a pretty crazy combo hand with like Gone in a Flash, Sigil, Brilliance, and Blast in an instant. And I think I have a spell in Arsenal. And I'm just sitting there and being like, okay, I just need to survive this turn. And Evan does some damage and then Mind Warps away my combo turn. And then on the next turn proceeds to Gone in a Flash combo me. And the game's not all that close, but yeah, sometimes the Cilio mirrors go like that. If you just Mind Warp their combo away, then draw your own combo, it's like, yep, you get those games.
Yeah, Mind Warp, very powerful card. It's like it's such a polar card in my opinion, right? Like the decks that are trying to fatigue you, they love to see the Mind Warp, and then the decks that are just trying to kill you, they hate to see Mind Warp.
Yeah, I'm actually like boarding down on Mind Warp in some of the matchups in favor of more big spells, but it is definitely one of the cards that makes Cilio so powerful is that not only does he do a bunch of damage, but he has like random disruption.
Okay. So yeah, congratulations on your Swiss rounds. Your XN3, that's 12-3. That's an insane run at the PT.
Yeah. No, I was like super pleased and very like kind of surprised, honestly. I mentioned like just not having as much time to prep, and I kind of went into the tournament with not a ton of expectations for myself. I was like, I'm just going to play my best, see how it goes. So I don't think I was necessarily expecting to do so well, but it was really exciting. And yeah, I was really excited to be going into top 8. And I guess we'll get into it as we talk about top 8. But I think my top 8 bracket is actually really good.
So you're coming in. Let's talk about the top 8 first. So top 8, we have 3 Acilios that make top 8. That's a crazy number, honestly. We have 1 Marionette, and then 2 Marionettes. We have 1 Victor, 1 Reinar, and 1 Teklo-Vossen. So those definitely are the decks that are, the spicy decks for this top 8.
Yeah, and I think this kind of encapsulates what we were talking about with the format, where you see the big 3 decks that we pointed out as being good decks: Acilio, Marionette, and Victor, and that's making up the bulk of the top 8. But there's also just all these other decks that you can play that are good. And I'm going to double check, there was 5 Reinars in total, made up 1% of the meta. Eugene makes it top 8. Congrats to Eugene, by the way. Like, awesome guy, really dedicated Reiner player. his games are super exciting to watch. If you haven't checked out Eugene's games, you should definitely do so. And it's kind of crazy that he's been playing Reiner all this time, and then they ban Mandible Claws, and that's when he top eights. But it is what it is. Very impressive. And then we also see Shannon on Teklovasen, and it's not just Teklovasen, it's Boost Teklovasen, which I don't think anybody was like prepared for. I had worked on Boost Teklovasen and written an article on it like really early in the format. I'm like, this deck's sweet, it has some good matchups, but like I don't know how you beat Acilio and Marionette. And Shannon managed to beat some Acilios and Marionettes. He also lost to some of them and then kind of crushed the slower matchups, which is like the big reason to play Teklo, because you still have the Singularity plan. But yeah, really cool to see Shannon do so well on Boost Teklo. And I kind of want to, I've played a little bit of his deck and I kind of want to play a bit more because I was having a lot of fun with Boost Teklo and I was like really excited to see Boost Teklo in top 8 actually, despite it being my opponent.
Fair enough. You were talking earlier or mentioning earlier about this the bracket breakdown being really, really good for you.
Yeah.
On your side of the bracket, we have you as the Acilio playing against the Teklovasen, and then your next matchup is either Reiner or Victor. Are those matchups good for you too?
Victor is quite good for me, and I'm not sure about the Reiner matchup, but I believe it's like at least decent for me. And I was pretty sure that Teklovasen was good based on my games prior. And then after making the top 8, they print out the deck lists for you because a lot of people have been on coverage. They just want to make sure everybody knows everyone's deck list and there's no like disadvantage to having been on stream multiple times or even once prior. So it just kind of levels the playing field. This is normal for every tier 4 event. And so I'm able to like look at their list, study it, think about how the board, play a couple practice games before going to sleep. The Teklo games go very well for me. I'm a little bit trying not to be too confident though, just because it's not like I have a Boost Teklo expert on the team. There's not very many people that pilot this deck. And so don't know exactly if people will play it the same way that Shannon did. But I do have an idea of how he'll board because teammates Peter Budensic actually lost to Shannon. He boarded for fatigue and I think he got hit for a bunch of damage turn 0 by boost cards. And then Michael Hamilton later beat Shannon. So between the two of them, I was able to talk to them about the cards presented and how Shannon would sideboard and kind of get most of that together. And the game seemed pretty good for me. And I think the top 8 game played out more or less how my testing games had gone, where just like, actually, there's not that much pressure if you're willing to do a little bit of blocking and you just need to find a good opportunity to combo. I kind of take a few turns to do it because I'm in spots where it's like reasonable to risk it, but I just feel like I'm at like 30 plus life, and I have plenty of time to find a better combo turn. So I feel like the way I could lose is if I pop my boots. Teklo actually blocks really well. So if I don't find the arcane spell, I don't do as much damage as I want to do. And then like from there, I have, not to say I can't win, but the game's a lot harder. Whereas if I just wait to make sure I have a good combo turn, that is probably good enough. And then that is exactly how it played out.
Okay. That's kind of like how I expected it to go as well. If they're not trying to like full fatigue you, and if they are on boost, it's just like you do have a lot of time to just like, do what you want to do as the Acilio.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that game was fairly one-sided and went really well for me. I also draw really well. I find Gone in a Flash almost right away. So you can check out the game if you want, but yeah, that's kind of, there's not too much to say about this matchup, I think.
Okay. I think before we move on to your next, your top 4 match, the game that I want to talk about in the top 8 was Eugene's game on Reiner. Yeah. Holy, at the venue, I wasn't like glued to the screen watching the game because I was playing some like showdowns or side events or something like that. But you knew when Eugene was playing because there's a stream going on right on the other side of the room, and every time the crowd goes wild, you knew it was Eugene because he was rolling that dice like so often. It was kind of crazy.
He had no fear. He definitely built his deck to to do the thing. And I think what I heard was like the winning. I haven't actually gone back and watched all of the top 8 games. I still want to do this, but what I heard was that one of his winning turn against Victor was something along the lines of Blood Rush Bellows, Roll Scabs, sand sketch plan for another Blood Rush Bellows, play another Blood Rush Bellows, and then just like do a bunch of damage because I think he rolled either 2 or 3 action points, which is just crazy. Like, shout out to Eugene. I cannot imagine having the fortitude to just like no blocks, take damage, play a Blood Rush and roll scabs, and then also sand sketch plan for a whiff, and like you just have like a 1 in 4 to time walk yourself. It's just like, oh my god. But yeah, calculated risk, and it does get there. So like it was the right play, but yeah, oh, not for the faint of heart.
Well, it's not even just a 104, right? Because the moment you choose to roll scabs, you roll a 1. The turn's over after you played Blood Rush Bellow.
Yeah. I just mean like after you roll scabs, the sand sketch is another 1 in 4. It's like, it's just wild. Because like otherwise you just like took damage, played a Blood Rush Bellow, and discarded a Blood Rush Bellow, and then did nothing, and the game's just over. Like it's just, yeah, it's mental. Maybe I guess he maybe has an action point because he rolled scabs, so he can do something. But you're in a bad spot.
Yeah. You lose both. You lose 2 of your Blood Rushes, and yeah, that's not where you want to be on a turn ever. I think he also discarded. I'm not sure if it was the Victor game or if it was your game. He discarded Skullcrack on one of the random discards to get the extra resource to make his turn work.
Yeah, I'm also not sure. He had some similar crazy turns against me, so I'm not. Yeah, I can't exactly remember, but yeah, it was wild to watch and very very exciting, and yeah, you could. It was like palpable in the venue whenever he was on. You could really kind of feel the energy. I heard that on the stream they were calling him the people's champion, and they'd be like the prediction for who's going to win, and it'd be like the people's champion versus like Nicholas, and like I think like Eugene was getting like 80 to 90% of the vote because people were so hyped for him, which was really cool.
Yeah, the play style that he decided to bring with Reinar was peak performance for sure.
Yeah, I also have a little bit of lore. Eugene had sunglasses on, and people were just like, holy, he's just like on stream with the sunglasses and aura farming people. Part of the reason that he has the sunglasses actually is because I played Eugene in Swiss in Silver Age in round 10, and it actually was a coverage game, but Eugene made a few mistakes and kind of mentioned feeling like the lights were really bright, and like he kind of felt like a deer in the headlights kind of, and just felt like he like couldn't focus and couldn't play well. So I guess his solution was to get sunglasses, which makes sense. And I'm glad that he was able to do that and still have a good run.
Okay. I don't know if I'm a little bit more disappointed or like a little bit more hopeful that it wasn't like the Aura Farm. Like maybe it would have been sicker if it was just the Aura Farm people to wear the sunglasses on stream.
Maybe I should have just like not shared the lore. I don't know. Just let the legend live on.
So Eugene wins the top 8 game, and then now you guys are playing each other in top 4.
Yeah.
And I think this was when I like kind of like randomly walked by you and Michael Hamilton, Michael Fang, just like talking about the matchup, right? Like preparing for this top 4 game, while you're waiting for some of the other feature matches to finish. And I walk by and I just see Yuki. What is this? What is it called? Like goldfishing Ocilio?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, oh, that's kind of weird for Yuki to be just like goldfishing. Like it looked like full turns, right? Like, and I'm just like, that's kind of interesting. And then I walk by, and then I see Michael Hamilton on his phone, and Michael Hamilton is on Talishar, playing on dummy mode with this with Reinar, and I'm just like, what's going on? I walk up, I talk to him. Apparently, they were testing Paper versus Talishar, and Michael Hamilton is manual moding everything on Reinar, including blocks and everything, so that they can have a test game because nobody in their team has a Reinar deck ready to play test this matchup.
Yeah.
This was so funny to me because it's just like you see Michael Feng and Michael Hamilton just like looking at this Talishar game versus Yuki, and Yuki is just like from afar. It just looks like playing against a ghost or something, right? But like fully in the tank in some spots. I'm just like, what is going on? But it was a kind of a sick sick thing to walk into.
Yeah, it was definitely really funny. For the most part, it worked pretty well because the dummy does attack you, so you can block. And Eugene didn't have AB in his list. Like his list had AB0 registered, so we knew he was on AB0 for sure. And as a result, that made most of it pretty easy. We did run into a problem where like I surged a mind warp, and then we're like, "There's a mind warp. How do we create a mind warp?" I can't actually even remember, but it was like involving like adding cards that like shuffled your deck and then like redrew cards. It was yeah, it was quite the experience. I think we like did something that shuffled the deck, and then like we had 4 cards, then we like sifted to go down a card. It was it was kind of wild. Somebody pointed out later that we could have like both played on Talishar, and I was just like, that's not as much fun though. Also, I kind of wanted to play with like the cards. I don't learn as well on Talishar, especially not on my phone. So I was really appreciative of both the Michaels actually taking the time to do this and help me out. But it was a really funny moment. Some people were like, "This is how you're testing for top 8."
Yeah, and this is really funny. It just looks like two guys are just like, on their phone on Talishar, and then it's just like Yuki is also talking with them and like is practicing on her own. It was a really funny. I have a picture of it. It is on the Patreon Discord that I posted, but yeah, it's a really funny picture.
Yeah, yeah. It's also kind of awesome because I think that Reinar in general, but especially Eugene's Reinar deck, is like not a very Michael Hamilton style deck. So I think he was a little bit pained playing it and being like, "What am I supposed to do?" And he's like, "Am I just supposed to no blocks and roll scabs?" And he's like, "I think that's what I'm supposed to do." And then there was like spots where like he'd like sand sketch for a blood rush and discarded the blood rush, and we're like, okay, well, we don't really need to see what happens if he whiffs, because like we know that's good for me. And also like is Eugene, so he's like probably not gonna whiff. So then we're like unwinding and being like, what if we pick a different blood rush, because that actually changes the seating on the discard? It's like, nope, that one still doesn't work. What if we pick the third one? Still doesn't work. And they're like, oh, we can roll scabs because that changes the RNG, and then do the sand sketch plan again. And we go through and we finally find the line that like doesn't discard the blood rush. Yeah, it was quite something. I think there was like also a spot where we just like added an action point where like, what happens if you hit? Because like it was just like another spot where if he missed, I probably just run away with the game, and he really kind of needed to get double action points. So we're kind of like playing on hard mode to synthesize or to emulate the Eugene RNG.
Then how did the actual game work or end up going for your top 8? We know that you won this game, but like how was your experience, or like what were you feeling when you were playing this game?
Like kind of a whole mix of things. A little bit scared because like, yeah, like just like the deck can just blow you up, is what I would say about the Reiner decks. You can never feel that comfortable. I'm very grateful that I has a higher seed, so I get to go first, and that means like free arcane damage, free setup. That also means I'm not gonna randomly because I'm like, if he goes first, he just rolls scabs, and I'm like, I can just take so much damage and be out of the game instantly. So getting to go first, I think, is really big for me. I find it pretty early, gone in a flash, and I'm able to kind of like set up what would be a pretty good turn. He has disruption lined up for it though, in the form of I believe it's like a splatter skull that just makes it so that like I'm down a card, and then he also has flush bag, so I can't really go for the boots turn. So I kind of take more setup turns. He's like continuing to just roll scabs, go crazy. I know that at one point he hits a beast within. I think he has like a blood rush bellow and hits like a beast within, and the turn doesn't end up being like quite as explosive as it could, but like his extra action points are really adding up. And I have to go down to 3 when I forget the exact life totals, but he's in the teens. And my hand is not the God in a Flash hand that you want. It's kind of like I have like Gone, double lightning press, another Gone in a Flash, and a spell. And the spell's in my hand, which isn't ideal either because I can get intimidated by Scowling Fleshbag, and then I won't be able to get the spell. And he's at like 13 or something like this. So I'm just kind of sitting there. I'm like, this is just like not good enough. I cannot really like go for a traditional combo turn, and I end up having to take a line that I don't think is one I would have taken or that I've really taken before, but it ends up being Gone in a Flash, pop Old Knocker and Boots, and hope that he just like doesn't block that much, and that's what happens because he still has 2 equipments up. So he blocks 3, a double lightning press, he takes 7. At this point, I've played 3 instants. I don't even have a Sigil in play at this point either. So then I pitch the other Gauntlet. I don't bounce the Gauntlet Flash because I want the damage on the lightning presses. And if you bounce the Gauntlet Flash, you lose the damage. I pitch my other Gauntlet Flash to Volzar, and then I Etchings of Arcana for 6. So I think I did 7 and 6. So he was at 16 at the start of this turn. I do 7 and 6. He goes down to 3. Now he's in shock range, and that's kind of like my out. But I still have to draw the shock. And there's like a little bit of a silly misplay that happens at this point where I think it's definitely nerves. I go through my graveyard and I'm like, I wonder if I have a lightning sigil. I'm like, there's no lightning sigil here. I guess I'll get Sigil of Ether. This is the best one because it does 1 arcane and he doesn't have AB, so that's kind of like 1 true damage. And so I'll just take the Sigil of Ether. That's fine. So I take that, and then we get to my turn. Or sorry, we get to his turn. He rolls Scabs and he starts attacking me, and it's like clearly going to be lethal. I have 2 red attack actions, which don't help me. I have a Comet Storm Shock, which is good because it's a shock, but I need 3 damage, and I need a lightning instant to pair with it. And the lightning instant I have is Lightning Press. And there's like a small out that if he Savage Feast, I can Lightning Press his Savage Feast, but he opens up with his weapon. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, I don't know if I have very many options besides cycling and hoping I hit a lightning instant. And at this point, I kind of go through my graveyard, think about like, what are my outs? Is there anything I'm overlooking? And I see a Sigil of Lightning in my graveyard. I'm just like, there's a Sigil of Lightning in my graveyard. I could have just had AMP3 and just like win on the spot here, but I just didn't double check my graveyard. So there's like a moment where I kind of put my head in my hands and I'm like super frustrated. And I think like everybody that was testing with me saw the Sigil Lightning and they're like, no, what is she doing? And then I Acilio discard the Lightning Press and draw a Sigil Brilliance and get there anyways. But definitely bailed out, and definitely potentially a really bad mistake. I think at that point, like half of my deck are outs though, so it's not so unlikely, but it's not something that I had to take. It's not a chance I had to take.
Yeah, like an unnecessary risk. It definitely was like the highlight of that game, right?
yeah, and I think I made it more exciting that I had to Acilio for the lethal, but it was also like just like needlessly stressful. Yeah, kind of crazy. The match is really interesting because he does a ton of damage, can randomly disrupt me, but I get all of my surge effects for free, so I get a ton of equity out of that, and it's sort of like the interaction between those 2 things, and it's quite an interesting matchup. I think the matchup is overall solid for me, but can get scary, and I think for the most part he rolls quite well. There's one turn where if he rolls, I forget, I think he rolls like 2 action points. No, maybe he sand sketched it, gets a second action point, and then rolls and just stays at 2 action points. And if he gets 1 more action point there, I probably lose. But also, I don't know. He rolled multiple action points in other spots that was good for him, so it's sort of hard to say. But yeah, it was a very exciting game and a very stressful game as well.
Well, congratulations. Good thing you drew that lightning card. So you get to the finals, and you also that's like a $10,000 pay jump as well, right?
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know what the difference between semis and finals is, but it's quite a bit.
Yeah, and yeah, that was a good top deck for whatever thousands of dollars you won there.
Yep, very good top deck. Very, very glad. I think I would have been really frustrated with myself if that's how my tournament ended, and seeing the Sigil of Lightning graveyard and just being like, oh, I didn't double check. This maybe should have been, in retrospect, a bit of an indicator to me that I should slow down and double check what I'm doing. And I think this actually comes back to bite me a little bit against Evan. So I guess, we can talk about the finals game. I guess for context, like if a lot of people haven't played, I think most people probably haven't played top 8 of a tier 4 and may not know how it works. There's a lot of waiting on Sunday. You're mostly waiting, actually, because they ask you to get there early. So we're there at 7:45. Normally the event starts at 9, but they ask us to get there at 7:45. They do a few like short interviews and work out like the stream order and everything. And they actually play the games basically one by one. They kind of have like the next game on deck and waiting and ready to go. And then like right as soon as the game ends, you start. But yeah, there's a lot of waiting. And like my first game was like the third match. So despite getting there at 7:45, there was like maybe like an hour before the game started and then like 2 hours of games. So I've already been waiting for like 3.5 hours before I play my first game. And then I wait for like two more games. I play against Eugene. And then they wanted the finals to be synced up with the live stream so that people would be seeing it like on the screen basically as it was happening. And this meant that we had to wait a bunch. And even after all the games were done, we were still kind of waiting. And they're like, oh, you'll start in 20 minutes. Oh, you'll start in 10 minutes. Oh, it'll be another 10 minutes. Oh, it'll be another 10 minutes. So it's a lot of waiting. And I think Evan and I are both like pretty anxious. We're like, we just kind of like want to play the match, right? But we don't get to play it right away. We have to wait. And I think that's maybe one of the biggest things I learned from this tournament is that top 8, you got to wait a lot and maybe reminding yourself to slow down once you finally get to the game would be helpful, because I think I was definitely that game goes by quick, and it is a fast game. It's not the most turns, but I think there's a few spots I could have taken a little bit more time to think, and that might have helped me out. And same thing in the Eugene game. So yeah, that was my learning. And I guess if you ever find yourself in a similar situation where you've been having to wait around for your game, this could even be like a top cut at a ProQuest or something. Honestly, like sometimes there's like a fatigue matchup and you're waiting. Just reset a little bit and make sure you take your time. Why are you laughing?
What? No, because usually the game that people are waiting on is usually my games.
Sure.
I think like not that relevant to the story, but like there was a game where one of the players was already locked for the finals and was waiting. I was still in my first game of top 8.
Yeah.
So like, and our game took an hour and a half. So this guy waited for like an hour for my game to finish, and then I won. So then I was playing top 4, and then that game took an hour. So this guy waited for 2 hours for his finals game, waiting for me to finish. So yeah, there can be a lot of waiting if you play some aggro decks. And I guess in this scenario, there's going to be a lot of waiting no matter what kind of deck you play.
Yeah. So just, I think I did a good job with like food, caffeine, hydration, managing all of that, not going too hard, but making sure I didn't neglect it either, and keeping my energy levels good. But yeah, I think if you've been waiting a long time, it's easy to get a little bit anxious or like excited or just like ready to play the game, especially when the pressure's high. It just kind of like that feeling of like, oh, this is so stressful. I like kind of want it to be over. But reminding yourself to lock in, I think, is really important. So yeah, I guess finals with Evan. It's a pretty explosive game. I think both of our decks are drawing quite well. Our decks are stylistically a little bit different. He has 3 null shocks in his deck. I'm playing 0. I've actually cut the card entirely. And he's only on 2 wobbles. I'm on 3. I also have 3 cloud covers. He has 1. So different pieces of interaction. And I would say his list is maybe more combo oriented. He also has like Seduce Secret in his deck, for example. So he's going a little harder on the like combo and kill you. And I'm going a little more in the interaction and like damage prevention and kind of like, yeah, more interactive game plan. He has die roll. He has the decision because he's higher seed. He chooses to go first, which is interesting because I would have chosen to go second. But yeah, I'm not sure what's better. He kind of just like does good damage to me with like fluttering charges and stuff. I find an early God in a Flash. And I'm in a spot where, yeah, I just go for the God and Flash turn. It's a pretty solid turn. I have 3 instants and a spell. And I'm sort of in a spot where I can either choose to amp the shock on my last, which is my last instant. I have a Consign to Cosmos Shock. I can amp that. Or I can go for the play where I amp the Mind Warp. And It's sort of interesting because I think in a lot of spots I might actually amp the shock and then just send the Gon in a flash and accept the damage and just keep the Mind Warp in arsenal. And he's like pretty low at this point. He only has 4 cards, and I'm in a pretty good spot. But I know that he's only on 2 wobbles in his deck, and he's actually already cycled one the turn before, and I think we're about like 4 hands in roughly. So his chances of having the other wobble is actually quite low, and the Mind Warp is like extremely good in this spot. So I end up going for the Mind Warp, which I do think is the right play. I've talked with a bunch of other people, and they agree that I'm just supposed to go for the Mind Warp there. He does have the wobble though, so that makes it a game. We kind of keep trading down. He never has a Gon in a flash, but he does do a lot of damage. And I guess there's sort of like a key turn, the turn before the final turn. It's Evan's turn. I guess even like one turn before that, there's a turn where I have sort of like I think it's like a Gon on a flash into a blast, and then I bounce a Sigil of Ether, dealing 4 arcane. He has a cloud cover, which is not great because I'm hoping to get him low. The cloud cover gives him some life buffer, and I think I'm a bit disappointed. I'm like, he has the cloud cover. That's too bad. It's only a 1 of, but like, he has the cloud cover, sure. And I'm kind of just trying to like move along and not be frustrated. The detail that I miss in this spot or don't pay enough attention to is that he pitches a flittering charge. And yeah, so I missed that he pitches a flittering charge. And this is relevant because his turn starts with an embodiment and he goes Blast to Oblivion, Somersault. So he's going to pick up the blast, pick up a Sigil of Conductivity, and then he has a card in his arsenal. And this is going to make an embodiment. And what's interesting is in this spot, he can go, if he keeps the flittering charge, he can go Blast, Somersault, he can go Blast with Go again, Flittering Charge, Somersault the Flittering Charge, and deal 12 damage. I'm at like 16, and I guess I don't know what his arsenal is. But he chose to pitch the Flittering Charge for 1 instead when I would convert for 4 on offense. And I think the tell here is that he actually needs the Sigil of Conductivity. It ends up being really important to his turn because he has a Null Shock. And there's a line where I can potentially shock his Sigil of Conductivity in response to him somersaulting, because at this point, like, his whole hand is face up except for his arsenal, and I have the information about the card that was pitched. But I kind of just like rush through this and just activate a Cilio and then don't really see it. And then on the second time he plays the blast, and he activates Old Knocker, which is ultimately for the Null Shock. At this point, I see the line. But it's not really that good on this line at this point because it only saves me 2 life, and my hand doesn't do very much without the shock. So I decide to keep the shock on my turn, which I think at this point is correct. But there's an argument to having just shocked for 2 at the start of the turn and blowing up his conductivity. Turns out this would have been extremely good because then he can't really amp and his turn falls apart, and then I get to go to my turn and I have, I believe, deterministic lethal based on the cards that were on our hand. I would like, because I have 3 Sigil of Aethers that are popping. I can Volzar the Sigil of Aether and then go like 2-2-1, or sorry, 2-2-2 because he only has AB1, and that puts him down to 6, and then I have amp 1, and I would draw into a Common Storm, and he doesn't have the interaction for it in his hand, and have enough life to live. But this is all hindsight, and there's arguments to not do it where, like, if he has a spell, for example, like etchings or something, he can still use his Old Knocker to pay for it and go through it. If he has a Consigned to Cosmos Shock instead of a Null Shock, the turn gets worse because he loses 2 amp, but it's still like fine. So yeah, it's not like a super clear I definitely should have done this, but it was a potential winning line, and I didn't really consider it because I don't know, I was anxious. I was playing too fast.
I guess to like sum that whole thing up, are you just more disappointed that you didn't even take your time to think about that there could have been a line there?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. As I was like, oh, I should have thought about it. For a while, I was like, oh, I definitely should have taken that line. And as I thought about it more, I think there's reasons to not take that line. But I think that when I saw him pitch the fluttering, that should be like alarm bells going off. And then especially once I see the somersault, and I'm like, if I think at that point, if I pause and go, you pitch fluttering charge, this is your hand. I get a lot of information about what's left. Like it's very clear that he needs the sigil of conductivity for this turn, and there's maybe I still decide not to do it. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I do wish that I had paid attention to his pitch. I kind of just like got disappointed, right? I'm just like, oh, he had the cloud cover, that's too bad, and I kind of missed that he had the pitch, and then kind of went through that line a little bit too quickly, and overall, I think I actually played the match quite well. Like I'm not too upset with the match overall. It's just like a learning experience of like, yeah, I should really make sure I take my time. The finals is untimed too, so it's like, not to say that you want to tank super hard on every decision, but just take that little bit of extra time to make sure.
Yeah, yeah. Mostly in one of those games where, like, those spots often do come up in the Cilio mirror, right? Like,
Mhm.
popping a conductivity is something that actually does come up in that mirror
Yeah,
more than once, actually. So, yeah,
yeah,
that could have been a spot where you always take your time, right?
yeah. And I think normally it would be just, yeah, I was a bit anxious, and I think I didn't even notice that I was rushing actually when I was playing, because it didn't feel, I guess, like there's just like so much going on and so much pressure that it still kind of feels slow. um but when I was watching the VOD back, I was like, oh, I'm playing really fast. Like this is faster than I usually play, even in untimed rounds, and there's kind of like no reason for me to be playing this fast. So yeah, I think like often people talk about not playing quickly enough because like, draws going to time, etc. But the clock is a resource, and time management's important, and there is also such a thing as playing too fast. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Like, even in a time match, you have 55 minutes, right? So, like, use your time. Just don't go to time. Like,
yeah, you gotta pick the important spots where this is the time where I need to think, and then maybe some of the simpler turns, play those quickly, so you do have the time to think when you need it. But yeah, I think I'm generally pretty good with time management. But yeah, it was just like interesting to see that be challenging in the top cut.
yeah, fair enough. In the finals of the Pro Tour, it was challenging. Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. That seems like the place to find it challenging, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
that many people will ever experience that in their lifetime, but yeah, honestly, it's great to hear, these kinds of thoughts. When the average person like watches these things, everyone that's like playing in these top eights that have their name like Michael Hamilton that pops up a bunch of times. Even like yourself, right? You come up on stream a bunch of times too on a bunch of different tournaments, and it looks like you just like play normally, but it's kind of refreshing to hear that it's you also get nervous even in these like stream games.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's the kind of thing that you learn from, you get better at over time. I definitely was like more nervous on stream, whereas these days I'm mostly pretty good on stream. But then, as the stakes get higher, it gets harder to be calm. And I think it's the kind of thing where if I'm lucky enough to find myself in a similar position in the future, I will hopefully be able to kind of slow it down and have that learning and takeaway. And I think that's like a lot of it. And even if this sounds like not so applicable for you as a listener, I think it actually is applicable. It just might not be the finals of a pro tour. It might be, your first ProQuest top eight, or your first calling day two, or just like whatever it is, your first stream match. There's all kinds of things that you can find like intense and stressful in card games, especially when it's your first time being there. And just know, like, I guess just a reminder to like slow down, breathe, do what you practiced, and also just know that being a bit nervous is normal and you might make mistakes. And as you're in that position more and more, you get better at being in that position and managing that. And I don't think it ever goes away. Like there's always going to be nerves, but experience does a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, even things like round one of the PT, even round one of a calling, right? Like,
Yep.
It's your first calling. It can be nerve wracking.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the thing that you find nerve wracking or the thing that might throw you off the game, yeah, maybe it's something different, but I'm pretty sure everybody has some kind of tier of event or some kind of situation that's like new and maybe a little stressful, and this could be helpful for.
Okay, I think we talked a good amount for this episode. Was there anything else you want to mention for this PT? Is there like people you want to like shout out that helped you prepare and get you this far into this event?
Yeah, I want to shout out quite a few people. Testing team in general was just like a huge help. The season was a bit tough. I've told them this, but yeah, thank you to so much to everyone that I test with on Team Invasion and Team Stroopwafel. They are amazing people, and I couldn't have done what I did without you. Like literally not possible. I learned so much, and especially I guess shout out to Michael Hamilton. He kind of suggested that I play a Cilio, and I kind of bounced off the deck in the past, but he had made some changes to the deck that I actually ended up really liking, and I think we ended up having we played almost the same list. We were off by one card, and we had a very similar approach that was a little bit different than some of the other people on our team. Some people made slightly different card choices, not so different, but a few cards different. But I think we really saw eye to eye, and I learned a lot from him in particular in this run. And I guess also shout out to Ellie. She couldn't be there, but she was super supportive of me while I was playing the rounds, and I was kind of like keeping in touch with her, and that was just nice to have that support. So I think that's everyone. I'm probably forgetting somebody, so if I missed you, I'm really sorry. But yeah, shout out to all the people that helped me. I guess like there was a bunch of people that helped me with top 8 prep as well. The Michaels, Jimmy, Peter, Caleb. I just felt like I had a ton of support this event, and that was huge.
Awesome. And then anything else you want to say before we close out the episode?
I don't think so. Yeah, that's about it. It was a really exciting weekend, and pleased with how it went. Hopefully, I guess the next goal is to try and win one of these, but who knows? Making top 8 is hard enough, and top cuts are kind of wild. So yeah, we'll see. But I would love to win a Pro Tour. That's still the dream, but coming in second is pretty darn good, and I'm really happy with that. So yeah, I guess that'll wrap us up. Also, I'm looking forward to getting back into limited. Silver Age was better than I thought it was. I think after testing it and the format kind of expanding beyond just KO, it was better than I thought it was. I had some pretty good Silver Age games. I still am looking forward to draft though.
I'm much more excited about draft. Do you know the thing that's really disappointing for me? The
What's
biggest thing that I'm super sad about is I'm not queued for Las Vegas. I couldn't get there.
No.
My Sage qualifiers didn't work. I lost the finals of a CC Pro Quest, and then obviously this one I didn't do well enough to top 32. So I don't get to play Las Vegas PT with the draft finally back in because there wasn't a draft qualifier to qualify for this one.
No. Yeah,
So,
that's unfortunate.
yeah, it's oh my god, it's finally drafted. I don't get to play the PT with drafted it. Oh my god. What
Yeah.
a what a scenario this is. I am gonna still go though. I'm gonna be playing probably the calling that's attached to it or side events. I don't know. I'll be there. It's Las Vegas. There's no reason for me to not to go. So
Yeah, and there'll be Nats, which has draft, so at least there's that.
yeah. I'm very excited for that. But yeah, we'll definitely be talking about the Omens draft once that starts to pop up. I'm excited to do the live drafts in Vancouver. I'm excited to do maybe a couple more drafts online too. So yeah, finally draft is back, and oh my god, it felt like so long. It felt too long, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. I had some people asking, like, are you still going to do a draft content? It's like, yeah, we're still a limited podcast. It's just hard to be a limited podcast when there's no limited. So, we've branched out. We will probably still cover constructed sometimes because there's only so much to talk about draft before it kind of makes sense to move on. But yeah, we'll be doing our usual kind of, I imagine, pre-release primer, and then how to draft all the heroes. And hopefully that most of that will be out for your nationals. Depending when your nationals is, like if it's US nationals, we may not be able to cover all of them, but we will, we will do our best as we usually do.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about the interesting ones or the good ones for sure. The ones you need to know for sure.
Yeah, we'll try to set you up, and all the heroes will get covered. But yeah, just depending when your nationals is, you may have more or less of the episodes out. But yeah, that's gonna be a wrap for us. Thank you everyone thank you everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and I guess good luck at skirmishes. That's coming up. Rotterdam, if you're playing it, although maybe it's too late to give people good luck for Rotterdam at this point. We're recording on Thursday and it's happening this weekend. So yeah, good luck in Rotterdam. If you have other events coming up, good luck to you as well. But there's definitely a little bit of a down season before we jump into Omens. Hopefully you're excited. I think Omens looks really sweet, both because of limited and honestly, like I think I'm excited for all of the heroes for CC. So you can definitely expect content. I'm not sure. People ask me which hero. I don't know. They honestly are all exciting. So I'll probably spend some time on whatever draws me in, but I wouldn't be surprised if eventually I get around to playing multiple. It's too early to say. Not enough spoilers. All right. Yeah. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on social media. Jay is at UedaJ on Twitter or X, and I'm at Yuki Bender on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can email us at onthebobble@gmail.com, or you can get in touch with us via the Patreon Discord, which is available to all patrons, and that is at patreon.com/onthebobble. Hope you found this episode interesting, helpful, entertaining, and we'll see you all next time.